A courtroom is supposed to be a place of law, order, and respect. But on this day, respect was the last thing on the judge's mind. The moment Pam Bondi stepped into that room, she had no idea she was about to face one of the most humiliating moments of her career. The case itself wasn't the focus. What happened inside that courtroom would soon become national news. Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General, a fierce prosecutor and one of Trump's most well-known allies, stood ready to argue her case. But the judge wasn't interested in the law. He was interested in power. With a smirk, he leaned forward, looked Bondi in the eye, and said the unthinkable. "Are you Trump's second sex toy?" The room fell silent. Gasps echoed through the courtroom. For a moment, Bondi just stood there, stunned. Then she took a slow breath, straightened her posture, and delivered a response that would change everything. The courtroom had all the markings of a place where justice was meant to be served. Towering bookshelves lined with legal volumes, the weight of history pressing down on every decision made within its walls. Attorneys whispered among themselves, shuffling papers, waiting for the proceedings to begin. Pam Bondi sat at the plaintiff's table, her expression calm, her focus sharp. She had been in courtrooms her entire career. This was nothing new. She wasn't just another lawyer. She was a former Florida Attorney General, a seasoned legal mind who had stood at the center of high-profile cases. She had faced opposition before, but nothing could have prepared her for what was about to happen. The judge, a man with a reputation for being brash and unpredictable, entered the courtroom with an air of arrogance. From the moment he sat down, there was something off about his demeanor, something mocking. Bondi could feel it in the way he looked at her, in the way he casually flipped through documents as if he wasn't taking this seriously. Then, as if the case itself didn't matter, he leaned forward, smirked, and uttered the words that would send shockwaves through the entire room. "Tell me, Miss Bondi, are you Trump's second sex toy?" A stunned silence followed. The courtroom, once a place of order, had just turned into a spectacle. The words hit the courtroom like a thunderclap. Gasps rippled through the crowd, a few people exchanging stunned glances, unsure if they had actually heard what they thought they did. Even the court stenographer hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard in disbelief. Pam Bondi blinked. For a brief moment, there was nothing but silence. No objections, no movement, just the weight of the judge's words hanging in the air. The judge, lounging back in his seat, smirked as if enjoying the moment. His tone had been casual, almost amused, like he was speaking off the record, as if the courtroom was his personal stage. He expected her to be flustered, to shrink under the weight of his crude remark. But Bondi was no stranger to pressure. Slowly, she placed her hands on the table, straightened her shoulders, and met the judge's gaze head-on. "Your Honor," she said, her voice steady, "you just made the biggest mistake of your career." The smirk on the judge's face twitched. Just for a second, a flicker of doubt. Murmurs filled the courtroom. The spectators, who had been frozen in shock, now leaned forward, sensing something big was about to happen. Bondi wasn't just angry. She was calculating. The wheels in her mind were already turning. This wasn't about her feelings. This was about justice. And if the judge thought he could humiliate her without consequences, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. Pam Bondi didn't flinch. She had faced ruthless prosecutors, aggressive reporters, and courtroom battles that had shaped history. But this was different. This wasn't just an attack on her. It was an attack on professionalism, on the very integrity of the legal system. She took a slow, deliberate breath, then turned toward the court stenographer. "Make sure that's on record," she said firmly. The room stirred. She wasn't ignoring the insult. She was making sure it was documented. The judge's smirk faltered slightly. "Oh, come on, Ms. Bondi. Don't be so sensitive," he scoffed, waving a hand dismissively. Bondi didn't react. Instead, she calmly opened her briefcase and pulled out her phone. She dialed a number and pressed the speaker button. The ringing filled the courtroom. A voice answered. "This is the Judicial Conduct Commission. How can I help?" The judge sat up straighter, his smirk now gone. Bondi's voice was clear, unwavering. "I'd like to report a judicial misconduct violation. It happened just now, in open court." The room was deathly silent. Attorneys exchanged nervous glances. The court officers at the door tensed, sensing the shift in power. The judge's arrogance was replaced with discomfort. "Ms. Bondi, I think you're overreacting." She cut him off. "No, Your Honor, I think I'm holding you accountable." And with that, the power in the room flipped entirely. The judge was no longer in control. Pam Bondi. The judge shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his confidence cracking for the first time. He glanced around the courtroom, expecting someone, anyone, to back him up. But no one spoke. No one moved. The weight of Bondi's words had settled over the room like a storm about to break. The voice on the other end of the phone remained professional. "Ms. Bondi, can you confirm which courtroom and presiding judge?" Bondi didn't hesitate. "Courtroom 4B, Judge Matthews." The judge's jaw tightened. "This is absurd. You can't just—" Before he could finish, the courtroom doors swung open. Two uniformed court officers stepped inside, their faces unreadable. The lead officer walked straight toward the judge. "Your Honor, we need to speak with you. Now." A murmur swept through the crowd. The judge let out a forced chuckle, shaking his head. "This is ridiculous. I was joking." Bondi tilted her head. "So was your career." The officers didn't wait for further debate. "Sir, stand up." The judge hesitated. Then, realizing he had lost control, he slowly pushed back his chair. The air in the room was thick with disbelief. A man who had spent years passing judgment on others was now the one facing consequences. The judge stood there frozen as the courtroom watched in stunned silence. The officers moved closer. "Sir, please step forward." His face, once full of arrogance, was now pale with disbelief. He opened his mouth, searching for a way out, but no one was coming to his defense. The attorneys, the clerks, even the spectators. Everyone knew they had just witnessed something historic. Pam Bondi remained composed, watching as the very man who had tried to humiliate her was now the one humiliated. She didn't gloat. She didn't need to. As the judge was led away, reporters in the gallery scrambled to grab their phones. Within minutes, headlines would explode across every major news outlet. "Judge removed from courtroom after insulting Pam Bondi. Career in jeopardy." Bondi gathered her papers, adjusting her blazer. Justice had been served. But more than that, a message had been sent. No one, not even a judge, is above the law. By the end of the day, the judge's name was all over the news. Legal analysts debated whether he would ever wear the robe again. Some called it karma, others called it justice. But one thing was clear: his arrogance had cost him everything. Pam Bondi didn't celebrate. She didn't need to. Her victory wasn't about revenge. It was about principle. A courtroom is a place of law, not personal attacks. And she had proven that no matter how powerful someone thinks they are never above consequences. The lesson: respect isn't given because of a title. It's earned through integrity. The judge thought he could use his position to humiliate someone. Instead, he humiliated himself. And it raises a bigger question. How often do people in power get away with this kind of behavior just because no one calls them out? Bondi's story is a reminder that standing up against injustice isn't easy. But when you do, you don't just fight for yourself. You fight for everyone who comes after you. Because in the end, real power doesn't come from a robe, a title, or a position. It comes from having the courage to say, "Enough."